What's up, Seventh Collective? My name is Noemi. So happy that you guys are joining us tonight. And tonight we have a very special guest, Bryan Waterman, who is in the production industry. And he's been in the industry for 15 years. He has a lot of knowledge. He's been managing the Super Bowl. He managed the Grammys. And he's here to speak with us tonight. So make sure you have your notebooks out and let's get ready to learn.
Hi, Bryan.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing well.
I'm so excited for this conversation. Could you please introduce yourself and give us a little picture of what you do for a living?
Yeah, sure. My name is Bryan Waterman. Been going to Revive Church actually since it opened. One of the few that have been here actually, before Josh and Noemi. So it's been really great to see the evolution of Revive, even to now having like great things like the Seventh Collective. I am an executive producer. I work in live events, sort of in marketing, but then also in live events like the Super Bowl, the NBA All-Star, big sort of pinnacle events like that. So it's a little bit all over the place, but basically big events, big live events.
Oh, wow. So how did you first get started in the industry? And what made you even want to work in the industry?
Yeah, it's sort of an interesting story. My wife, Miley, she and I both joined a group called the Young Americans out of high school. So in high school, I played a lot of sports and just, I guess, your typical sort of jock. And then both of us separately, but encountered this performance group that was touring the country, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I wasn't at the top level to play sports, even though I was good. I wasn't like going to go to college and get a scholarship. And so this group came and they were performing and teaching kids about the arts, and it was just sort of like this shot in the arm. And so I auditioned, I made it, and came out to California to be a performer at 18 without a lot of experience. So like had to be fully immersive in, learning how to dance and sing and basically be on stage, which is where I met Miley, who became my wife many years later. But, from an early point, I realized I wanted to be backstage, because like when you're with a performance troupe or like a theatrical show, there's the people that are on stage, but then there's this huge sort of backbone that you don't see when you're out in the audience. And I realized at like 19 that originally that I wanted to be a stage manager theatrically and like be backstage and help like sort of put on shows.
Yeah, that's interesting how you started kind of in front of the camera.
Yeah.
And now
it was really I think from an early age throughout my career, it was like the first sort of like jumping into something, like jumping into the deep end of a pool, like fully immersive, but like not really like having all the tools like to be a master, but going in and just like learning as I would go, which later, I would use that with sort of different like parts of my career that were like never been done before, and like how do I figure this out?
Mm-hmm. So like you said, at age 19, you realized, okay, I want to be a stage manager.
Yeah.
So what did you do with that? Like, where did you start? How did you network?
Yeah, so sort of got, finished performing and was lucky enough to go work at Disney. So I was working actually at Disneyland, working in like the entertainment, so working on the shows, both with at the park in Anaheim, so at Disneyland, and it was almost like like in any industry, like working for a big company that really has like a strong culture and like how they do their business. Like Disney for me was really like in the entertainment business, like learning a trade and like learning like best practices and how I could take those as I moved, up, in the industry. So, jumping into my early 20s and just really, again, like trying to do as much as I could and work with a lot of industry professionals. That was sort of my next step. After Disney, which was right about the time that Miley and I were getting engaged and gotten married, I realized that Disney's great, but like they don't like it's not a place that the pay is amazing. Probably because they can get people to go work there, and I figured I could. That sort of was my moment of like I can do this on my own. A term at that time which was not as popular as like a freelancer. Now with the gig economy and like people working sort of for themselves and really being opportunistic, it's so much more mainstream. But back almost 20 years ago, going out on your own and having to basically like hustle with people to hire you to do events was a little different.
So yeah, like how did you freelance?
Yeah,
how did you make it work?
It was interesting because Miley and I had as a young married couple, we're trying to figure out like, okay, how is this going to work? And I mean, praying about it and really trying to like, understand if hey God, is this the right thing? Like, because it was a big like sort of jumping off thing, leaving a full-time job, no kids, but still like married, and trying to like sort of help her and I build a household. I think for me it was getting my name out there, but again, like we were talking about before, like coming in with a really strong work attitude, not trying to pigeonhole myself like this is all I can do, but more focused on like really being like flexible to do like on a job, like do as much as I could. Early on, I learned, that like you want to be a Swiss Army knife. Like you don't want to just have like one sharp blade. You want to have like 7 or 8 tools. And so I've always, both for me, but also for the people that I've hired, it's like I'm looking for people that, have like a major, but like 3 minors, not just like really good at one thing. I think because especially in entertainment and in events, across that journey, there's going to be so many different things that you're going to have to tackle, So again, I think early on, it was getting in, working hard, connecting with people, and then, year over year, you start to have relationships with people so that they know you, and then, they're hiring you again, or they're recommending you to somebody. And it just sort of went from there and flourished, which was, sort of the first, batch of my like career adventures.
Yeah. So after working with Disney, I mean, I know you've had an extensive career and you've been doing this for years. So can you kind of summarize your journey from Disney to where you are now?
Yeah, I mean, going into as a producer in my mid-20s, so I was doing a lot of shows. So I realized that the next sort of aha moment I had was like, okay, if I'm a producer where I can work on a project for like 3, 4, 5 months, I can now, I can provide more stability to my family. I can make more money. So it was sort of shifting from being like, I'm going to go work on a show for a couple days to I'm going to produce an event, which what we call pre-production, which if you're like a project manager and, you're doing like a campaign or something, you're still going to have like that rollout to get to whatever you're doing. So, that was the next thing in my like late 20s where it was like, I still want to do all that fun stuff and I'm going to like schedule those things sort of strategically throughout the year. But now I'm going to try to lock in like contracts. So when I look as a basically a small business owner, I can see for the year, I've got these chunks. So like for Miley and I, we could sort of sleep better knowing that those things are happening, and then sort of layer in the fun stuff. So, that took me through my early 30s, and I was doing things. I was able to start working on the Super Bowl halftime show, of which I've done 15. I didn't do last year because of COVID, but up until that point, I had done literally 15 in a row, which was cool.
Super cool.
Yeah, and then also doing jazz festivals, doing like automotive car launches. I mentioned the NBA All-Star Game, doing some outdoor like hockey. They do like when they do the hockey games like outdoors, the Winter Classic, and just really. As I hit the 30s, it was also like starting to switch to marketing events. It was like, okay, I need to pivot, right? I need to like not just sort of stay as a one-trick pony, but like how can I continue to diversify and sort of like look at the next batch of years to sort of grow.
Before I move on, so you said you worked on the Super Bowl for 15 years, right? I mean, the Super Bowl is like the event of all events. Like, it's a huge thing.
It's a big deal.
So what do you mean when you say like I worked on it? Like, what did you do? And if you have a favorite one that you worked on.
Well, yeah, it is a big deal. It's I think for all of us, in our industry and like things that we do, whether you like whether you're a pastor and maybe when you start, like it's a big deal to like, you're preaching to 200 and then maybe eventually it's 200,000. Like, for me to like start working on the Super Bowl and then like over 15 years, like sometimes I have to remind myself, yes, it is still like one of the biggest television things that's viewed in the world. My specific job is working on the halftime show as part of the team that handles all of the performers on the field, not the main performer on stage. So like every year, most years, there'll be like local performers, dancers, like this year with The Weeknd, even though I wasn't there, my team was there. At the end of the show, there was a huge like sort of dance moment with all these dancers. So my team would handle that and sort of like liaison with the head talent person to sort of bring their show to life. So I'm right there on the field, like with Lady Gaga, like when she's like crouched down, like doing all of her costume changes, and we're all sort of like huddled, like there's a lot of those sort of experiences where you're literally in a sense like right there at where the magic is happening. I would say my favorite show was my second Super Bowl, which was Prince in Miami. That was, I mean, it rained and he just like, it was just one of those things,
That show was iconic.
Yeah. I think if I gave you my top three, it would be that one, Lady Gaga and Beyonce, 1A, 1B. Her main show, the 50th anniversary was good, but her show in Louisiana was also pretty amazing.
Yeah. I love how you're just casually listing like Prince, Lady Gaga, Beyonce, and I'm like dying over here. That's amazing. Last year when the pandemic hit and everything stopped, what was that like for you in terms of your career, and how did you navigate through that?
Yeah, we were talking before, I think before the pandemic, like I can speak for myself, like I thought I was essential, like because I was an executive producer, I could look at my year and say, I'm going to do this. And most often I was right, or I was close enough that I was like the king of my career, and things were great, which I have a point about that. But with the pandemic, it was like all of a sudden, like to go from like in your mind, like that you're sort of important and everybody needs you to do these events, to being like unessential, basically. Like, because I wasn't essential because I wasn't a healthcare worker. I wasn't, working in city and local government, and all these people that really were just like, pushing through up against their health, like to keep things moving for us. So I think it was really For me, it was really understanding, on a lot of levels, like, what I get to do, what I do is a blessing, and it's so amazing to get to do that, but it's not essential. And understanding the difference between like people that really lay out, what they do for their work, like for me, it was sort of an aha moment. The other piece of that was like leading up to, and I think I had really, this is something that I struggle with, from time to time, is, sort of taking the reins of my career, out of God's hands, but like his hand is still on it, but like I'm sort of like, he's like, I'm sort of like steering the wheel, but not just like really like sharing that with him, and like, consulting him with like the things that I'm doing, and like with my career and how it relates to my family. And that also, when everything just stopped, it was like, oh wow, like, I'm not in control. I really need to be reminded that for me and my work and my family, our finances, all that stuff is like, it's bigger than just me, and I couldn't just fix it. As a producer, I couldn't just like re-engineer and like make it all better. I will say, our church is very much rooted in small groups, and having a really strong small group like back in March and April, as we were like shifting to online, like was really like to have, men and women that we've walked with in here at Revive, doing life, like to have people, supporting me, and, like not really knowing what to say because it was a pandemic, like nobody really had like the right answer, but just to have people like in our corner that cared, especially in that early time was helpful,
Definitely. Um, so how did you pivot during the pandemic on how to get back to work? And now that the pandemic is, kind of lifting, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, it was interesting because I didn't work for 6 months. We sort of just like everybody, we sheltered in place, and which really, it was funny because we were, coming out of that. Now it's like, oh man, that actually was really nice time. It's I think, but I figured out, okay, well, again, another pivot. Like I was like, film and television has to come back because we're all burning and watching all this content. Somebody's got to catch up and make more shows, because then we're just going to like start, watching like old school reruns. So, and then I was like, well, they're going to have to keep COVID out of like film and television to work. So like, as I started to hear from, I have friends that work more formally in television, about COVID compliance. And early on, I took it upon myself to get trained as a compliance officer, which now is like a fully structured, you work in television. So there's like a department now that is responsible for like cleaning and wiping everything down and like really, keeping COVID out. And I knew that also because I do live events, that was going to be something I needed to know for what will be the end of 2021 and into 2022. So like, it's valid training that was not something that would be like a waste of my time. So, I was just, again, it's like I had to go back to like where I was in my 20s, where I was like a freelancer, and now I'm like hitting up people at studios and like just to try to find work. And I found work, and it ironically, like once I started to get busy with COVID compliance, then the live industry through like digital events started to come back like in September and October, and I was able to pivot again to what would be the precursor to coming back to fully live. I know it's a lot of pivoting, but the story there is, I think, for all of us in our careers, like, you really have to be like, you have to be ready to like be open to change, and especially with your career. I think it's something that is going to serve all of us better, is to not just be like, this is my thing, this is what I'm doing. Yes, that is what you're doing, but if you inch 45 degrees this way, maybe that's going to make that thing, better.
Right. Yeah. I think a continued theme that you're talking about is like pivoting, adapting to changes, and really just trusting where God takes you, right? Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it was really, I mean, it was I think back to the pandemic, and we we were never not taken care of, and we were. It was just like, I don't know how it happened. It's like, I think a lot of us that were in an industry that just really went dark. It was just a testament to to God and his love and sort of care for us, that we made it through. And I mean, I was thinking about, my son has been home with us, for over a year, and every day, like, we eat breakfast, we eat lunch, and it's like, the pandemic has been really hard, but there's been so many positives, that have come out of it, that when we are fully wherever we're going, back to normal, or, relaunch, that there are definitely some things that I'll remember, as positives.
Yeah, because I mean, I don't know if a lot of people know, but production hours are crazy. Like 13, 14-hour work days, working weekends, early mornings, late nights, traveling everywhere. So outside of the pandemic year, how have you learned to balance work life?
Yeah, I mean, it's an evolution. I'm in my early 40s. There were, early on, sort of that fervor when you're young and you're just like you get an opportunity, and then somebody's like, "Hey, can you do this?" And you're like, "Yes, yes, yes, yes." And then you're not really addressing sort of your work-life balance and your health. If you're in a relationship, it's also like, "Hey, like, I need you to check in with me," versus like just on to the next gig, and I won't see you for a long time. So I think, for Miley and I, it was really trying to over communicate. It's not always perfect, but staying connected when she or I both, because she runs a nonprofit, but she was a producer. So I've been blessed to have a partner that understands what I do. But you know, understanding that it's going to be long hours and hard work and weekends, but like really communicating with your partner, with your spouse, and your children, that they know that you're still there for them, and you've got their back, even if dad's, where is dad? Is he on a plane to New York? Is he in? Like, so.
Yeah. And could you share some of your favorite things about working in the industry, and on the flip side, some cons that people might not know about?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a new canvas every time. Some of the canvases, if we're using like an art example, like when we're creating art, even though we're sort of back of house, like sometimes they're not going to be as like super amazing. Like they're not all going to be the Super Bowl halftime show, but it's a blessing, to have that work. And I think, for me, some of the favorites, I think, working, especially because I really am into sports, it's been great to like do a lot of things where I've been able to work with athletes and, be up close with people that are like leads in their industry. The industry, I think, is, I'm trying to think about like what, like bad or like, tough things. I think, everybody is just so focused on like getting things done that sometimes, there can be sort of a lack of care, long hours, bad eating habits and things, because people are so focused on getting this piece of art, whether it's a show or a marketing project or something, like out the door, that like a lot of like well-being can sort of go out the window. And I think that for me, the older I've gotten, the more I've really tried to address, like, I'm not working on the weekends. Like, yes, I got an email at 8:30. It'll be there at 7:30 or 8 in the morning. Like little sort of like tricks that it's like, no, I don't have to do that right now. Like I can be present with my family, or, like at least keep work sort of over here, when I need to. And that takes time. I mean, again, like younger, there would always be that like all of a sudden, like Miley would see me like sort of glazed over because she knew that like I saw something on my phone, and now I'm like spinning because I have to fix it, or I have to go like address it, where I still feel that, but I can like sort of push it, like that'll be there tomorrow.
Right.
Is the client really going to be like need an answer at 10 p.m. or can they get an answer at 8:30?
Right. And before we wrap up, Do you have any advice for people who are interested in working in the entertainment/media industry, and how can they get started?
I know I get that a lot. Every year at the Super Bowl, somebody's like, "How do I get on your team?" I'm like, "Well, I don't even know how I got on this team. They just keep inviting me back." I think you had talked about doing some internship work, and I think that that's a good place to start in our industry. Like a PA is a production assistant. It's somebody that can sort of like, it is a little ground level, but if you're a hard worker and you're open to to learning, like it's a great way, both in like the live events and also in film and television to get started. I think now things are so much more connected socially across like all media platforms that it's providing more opportunities, because the different like workflows are so much more connected, whether I'm a TV guy, or I'm a gal, or I'm a live events person. I do podcasts, I do video games. Like now, like you might see a certain brand or thing and it's like it's all of it. So for somebody that wants to get into the business, there's a lot of, more opportunity, I think.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's our time for today, but I just want to thank you so much for this conversation. I personally learned so much because I also work in production, and the hardest thing for me has been work-life balance, and just hearing from you and your experience and how you balance family, time with your wife and your son, and still doing what you love. I've learned so much, so thank you very much.
Yeah, no, of course. I appreciate it. I think the one thing that I would say, just to put a pin on it, is, in entertainment and what I do, like, don't ever be afraid to talk about like your church, and like that's a part of your life. I think that in our industry, people tend to think of those of us that are Christians that go to church as being sort of wacky over here. And I think just talking about our communities, like, and normalizing it, that like, speaking of our our church environment and our friends from church, and like in a normal sort of like tone, it makes people inquisitive, because they're expecting us to be sort of like over churchy or like just sort of aggressive. And I found through my journey that like just like letting them in to see that that we're not crazy, like we're just like you, like we have this great environment and this great home to come to. It's I think it's just a little extra knowledge.
Yeah, that's really great. Thanks, Bryan.
All right, thank you.
How good was that conversation, guys? I hope that you guys learned a lot today from Bryan, and you guys took some good wisdom nuggets from this conversation. Well, guys, before we let you guys go, there's two things that we would like to mention. The very first is that if you're not connected to a life group, please make sure you let us know, you reach out to us, because we would love to connect you with a life-giving group. Additionally to that, guys, we do have a monthly newsletter that gets sent out, that we let you guys know who our speaker is going to be, what are the subjects they're going to be talking about, and nothing will make us better than to make sure that you're on it. So thank you for joining us tonight, for making the time to be with us, and we'll see you next time. God bless.